Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are continuing a recent series that I've been doing on this YouTube channel, and that is going in depth into what each lottery team should do with their first round pick. So far, we've done the top 7 picks in the draft, so obviously, as we are going in numerical order, today we are at pick 8, which belongs to the New York Knicks. The Knicks are in an interesting spot as they have some guys that could be role players, I guess, like Elfrid Payton or Bobby Portis or Julius Randle, but those guys are either on contracts that are way too big, like Randle or Portis, or a player option that the Knicks might not want to accept, or excuse me, a team option that the Knicks might not want to accept if they want to have cap space this coming offseason in Payton's case. They do have 2 solid pieces to build their own in R.J. Barrett and Mitchell Robinson, but I am not as high on either of those 2 players as many people are. So I really think the Knicks are in one of the worst places in the entire NBA. So let's talk about how they can get out of that position. My first choice for them would be to draft Killian Hayes from Ulm of France. I think that Killian is one of the best players in this draft. He would be a steal for the Knicks at 8. He fits their biggest need at point guard. He is a very good left-handed player, can shoot the ball a little bit. His jumper has some questions, but he shoots the ball really well from the free throw line, so that leads me to believe that eventually his shot is going to come along. He's a very good playmaker. He can handle the ball pretty well, and the defense is not terrible. It's actually pretty average. So I think that Killian would be a great choice for them at the 8th pick. And in this video, I will be talking about players that I actually believe will be there at 8, or at least have a chance to be there at 8. In Killian's case, he could go at 6 to the Hawks. He could go at 7 to the Pistons, but there is at least a chance he'll be there at 8. In the case of players like LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, I'm going off of the fact that I believe that there is a next to 0% chance that they will be available at the 8th pick. So my next choice for the Knicks would be to trade up to get one of those 3 players that I said will almost 100% be off the board. In my opinion, for the Knicks, the only one they should really think about is LaMelo Ball, due to the overlaps Anthony Edwards has with R.J. Barrett and the overlaps James Wiseman has with Mitchell Robinson. I would not be afraid to give up Robinson to move up in this draft to either the 2nd or 3rd pick, preferably the 2nd, but if the Warriors aren't interested, you could move up to 3. In that case, you would be moving up to get LaMelo Ball or James Wiseman because you're getting rid of Mitchell Robinson. So that could be a very interesting proposition. I think LaMelo and Wiseman are the 2 best players in the draft. However, I wouldn't get rid of Robinson to move up to draft Wiseman due to the fact that Wiseman's probably going to be a better player than Robinson, but I don't think that it's enough that you would give up Robinson and another asset to draft Wiseman. But if you're getting Ball, I just think that Ball plays a position of far more importance than the one Robinson does. I think that Robinson can be a complementary player on a championship team due to the impact he can, doesn't quite bring on the defensive end of the floor due to his tendency to foul, but will eventually bring on the defensive end of the floor, and his ability as a rim runner, but I do not think that he can be one of the 2 best players on a championship team, where I think that that is certainly within the range of possibilities for LaMelo Ball due to his ability as a playmaker. So I would not be afraid to give up Robinson and the 8th pick to get a guy who could potentially be your franchise player in LaMelo Ball. I wouldn't do it for anybody else. If LaMelo goes number 1 to the Timberwolves, which I think there is a strong chance that happens, or if someone else trades up with the Timberwolves to draft LaMelo, in that case, I would much rather the Knicks stay at 8. Another trade option they could do would be to give up the 8th pick, Frank Ntilikina, and the 27th pick for the 4th pick, the 5th pick, or the 6th pick. I don't think they would have to give up all 3 of those. They could probably just give up 2. I think that Ntilikina and the 27th pick would have very similar trade value, and obviously you're going to have to give up the 8th pick if you're going to trade up there. They would be doing that to hop over the Pistons and hop over the Hawks as the 2 teams that I think have the most potential to draft a point guard ahead of them outside of the beginning of the draft where LaMelo will likely be off the board. So in that case, they would be trading up to take their choice between Killian Hayes and Tyrese Haliburton. I would not be opposed to this idea, but I also think that the Knicks should probably hang on to all the assets they can, and I don't think that trading up to get Hayes or Halliburton would be enough to change your franchise, that I would want to give up another first round pick as well as the guy you drafted in the top 10 a couple years ago in Frank Ntilikina. My next choice for the Knicks would be to draft Isaac Okoro. Usually Okoro isn't someone I'm that high on. I like Devin Vassell better, and I think that Vassell is a better prospect, but I think that the Knicks are starving enough for star power that they would be better off drafting Okoro than they would Vassell. I think that Vassell is going to end up being a great role player, and we'll talk about him a bit more later on because I do think that he is an option for the Knicks at the 8th pick. But I would rather them take Okoro due to his ability to potentially reach an all-star ceiling someday. Okoro is a guy who is an excellent defender, both as an on-ball guy and as a team defender. He can get to the rim well. He's a solid playmaker. He rebounds the ball well for a forward. The big question is his shot, and I have a ton of questions, and I think it's going to take a long time to figure out because he does this weird thing where he catches the ball, brings it down, and it takes him way too long to get the shot off. I've been watching more and more film on it. Recently, I watched pretty much a whole 5-minute video of Isaac Okoro shooting jump shots, which isn't very much, but I'm not an expert, okay? Okay, I'm just making a YouTube video. But I just have too many questions about that jump shot to believe that Okoro is worth taking here for most teams. But in the Knicks' case, if they are able to figure out that jump shot, Okoro can be the guy they build around in their rebuild moving forward. So I think that he would definitely be worth spending the 8th pick on if you're not a believer in Killian Hayes and you do not trade up, or if Killian's not available. My next choice for them would be, and this is going to shock everyone because this has been a player I've been very negative about. If you've been watching these videos, you know who I'm talking about. It's Obi Toppin. I'm not high on Obi because I don't think that he reaches any kind of playability on defense to the point where if he's on a good team, it's going to be as a bench player. But the Knicks are starving for star power, and Obi Toppin might have the highest ceiling of anyone in this draft. I like the John Collins comparison with him as a guy who can shoot the ball, can go to the rim, very athletic, and a fantastic finisher. Not a terrible passer. There's potential there as a shot blocker, but I don't think he reaches it because his defensive instincts are just so atrocious. He can't move his feet well. He has very poor hip flexibility. I am not a believer in Obi Toppin, but I just think that his offensive potential makes him a big enough asset to the Knicks that I would rather them take him than a couple of the next guys on this list who I think are going to be very high-level role players, but maybe don't have the same high ceiling that a guy like Toppin or Okoro will have. The next two guys on my list for the Knicks are guys that are probably going to be very high-level role players, and Tyrese Halliburton and Devin Vassell. They both fill needs for the Knicks, as Halliburton can play point guard, which is probably their biggest positional need, and they do need some help on the wing as well, and Devin Vassell, how about that rhyme right there as well, Vassell, but Devin Vassell profiles as one of the highest level wing players in this draft. He is an excellent shooter, as is Halliburton. Halliburton's much better off the catch than he is off the bounce, but he's probably mostly going to be taking off the catch shots, as I don't think you're counting on him to be a star-level guy at any point in the future. Vassell obviously had that funky video come out of his jump shot where it just looked very odd, but I wouldn't say that one off-season training video would be enough for me to pass on one of the guys that has the highest floor. Well, one of the highest floors of anyone in this draft, as I think that Vassell is, regardless of what happens, is going to be a rotation player in the NBA. At best, maybe he can become a very high-level fourth starter as maybe like a Gordon Hayward type player. 2020 Gordon Hayward, not 2016 Gordon Hayward. But I think it more than likely he ends up being like Wesley Matthews type contributor as a 3-and-D wing, which is excellent. Halliburton has a bit more of an upside, as maybe he can end up being a very, very good point guard for you, and maybe even a franchise point guard for that matter. There is some like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander type stuff in his game as a bigger guy who can play the one, shoot the ball pretty well, plays pretty good defense. So Halliburton, I think I would rather them take than Vassell, but there's also a better chance that Halliburton is off the board at this point than there is Vassell. So those would be my 6th and 7th options. After that, I would like to trade down. Maybe you can get all 3 of the Celtics first-round picks for this. Just stockpile some assets. And at 14, quite honestly, the player you're going to get is not going to be all that lower of a level of player than the guy you're going to get at 8. There's a lot of guys that I actually really like in that 14 range. Guys like Sadiq Bey, Kira Lewis, Precious Achiuwa. You know, they'd have options there. And you're also adding 2 more first-round picks at 26 and 30, where maybe you can pick up some solid role players for the future. Another idea I had, and this is coming off of the Mavs saying they want to trade up in this draft, maybe Jalen Brunson in the 31st pick for the 8th pick could be something. Brunson could fill the Knicks' need at point guard, and they also add basically a first-round pick, as it's the first pick of the 2nd round. And the Mavs can move up and draft someone like Okoro or who would be Halliburton as someone who could play alongside Luka Doncic and eventually be another high-level building block for them moving forward. The next 2 guys that I guess I should continue talking about trading the pick before I move on to my last 2 guys that they could draft here, and that would be trading completely out of the draft for Russell Westbrook or Chris Paul. I actually really like the idea of the Knicks trading for Chris Paul, but I don't really think you have to give up the 8th pick for that. You could make something centered around Julius Randle, the 27th pick, and Frank Ntilikina, maybe one of the future Dallas first-round picks. You could make that work in exchange for CP3 instead of giving up your best asset in the 8th pick. So that's the reason I don't like that, and I don't think they should trade for Russell Westbrook, even if they wouldn't have to include the 8th pick. So that's why those options are so far down on this list for me. After that, Kira Lewis could be an idea. However, I think that you'd rather trade down and draft him because I don't think that there's much of a threat from the Wizards at the 9th pick to draft him. So actually, if you really like Lewis, I think the Suns could draft him at 10. So at 8, you should definitely consider taking him if he's the guy that you really like. Finally, Cole Anthony. Only have him on here because I've heard Knicks fans say they want Cole Anthony. It's a terrible idea. What is the thing the Knicks are worst at? Shooting. They don't have any sort of shooting. What did Cole Anthony not have at North Carolina? Shooting. He didn't have any sort of shooting around him. What happened at North Carolina? Cole Anthony was atrocious. Why would you want to bring a guy that needs shooters around him to excel to a team that has no shooters? If Cole comes to the Knicks, it will be an absolute disaster. He will be a humongous bust, and I would absolutely recommend the Knicks don't even think about drafting Cole Anthony, because if you do, you will regret that. So, in summary, my options for the Knicks would be draft Killian Hayes, trade up to the 2nd pick, trade up to the 4th or 5th pick, draft Isaac Okoro, draft Obi Toppin, draft Tyrese Halliburton, draft Devin Vassell, trade down, draft Kira Lewis, trade out of the draft, and draft Cole Anthony. If you're a Knicks fan, let me know in the comment section what you think the Knicks should do with their pick. If you're a fan of any team, let me know what you think the Knicks should do. They need help. They haven't had a successful rebuild in a long time. So let's help the Knicks out. Let me know what you think they should do. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I've loved the support I've been getting on these videos, so that's why I'm continuing to crank them out. So leaving a like would really show me that you enjoy them, and I will continue to bring out these in-depth draft videos. That's it for me. I hope that you all enjoyed, and ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.